I'm intrigued by it just because it really talks to the dark side of human nature.
It does, yeah.
The things that go on there, and I'm just an odd person like that. I'm very drawn to the dark side of human nature, hence why all of my Victorian stuff is, the macabre and the dark side of human nature. But I think that that's the fascinating thing, is to figure out why we're drawn to that. What is it that makes that appealing to certain people but not so appealing to other people? And so I think that, something like the Hellfire Club, or, even like Golden Dawn, all of these secret societies have, some sort of intrigue or interest. And I honestly don't think they were really open to the everyday person either.
No, probably not. As I say, a
Yeah.
lot of what I've heard is that it was made up of a bulk of very
Full of wealth.
well-known,
Mm-hmm.
wealthy
And people with
individuals.
money, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, how could you possibly keep these kinds of secrets and these kinds of things that give you the privacy that you need, or perhaps paying that tavern owner just a little extra money to use the back
Hmm.
room, or to keep quiet about the meetings or what you might have heard. So yes, it's definitely interesting. That location also too apparently has, the original owner is said to still be on that site as well. So Connolly, who came later, but the original owner, as you had mentioned, the person who had purchased the land and had built the mound and those types of things, prior to Connolly's hunting lodge, the original site. Yeah, that would be being interesting. He's said to still kind of roam around there as well.
Hmm.
So that would be kind of an interesting thing. There's just so many interesting places in Ireland to talk about. I mean,
Well,
there's,
there's another building that's actually kind of related, and I'll just say it loosely,
mhm. Okay.
because it's related just through stories and folklore.
Hmm.
But one of the stories with the Hellfire Club at the lodge there, there's this crazy story, and I don't believe a word of it. That there was some kind of satanic, demonic presence that showed up. A
Okay.
man with hooves for feet, and created havoc and all
Hmm.
that. And there's a connection, though. That same story also appears in another building. Um, and here's where I'm going to draw a blank.
Yeah, I do that too. I
um,
do all the research and then I'm like, okay, if I don't write it down, I'm done.
Loftus Hall. It
Oh,
was called
okay.
Loftus Hall. It's a big old stone mansion somewhere there
Wow.
in Ireland. And they share the same story, that there was this demonic presence that showed up with cloven hooves for feet. And um, actually, the building was just put up for sale last summer. That
Oh, darn. And I didn't have a lottery winning to buy it.
$3 million. If
Oh,
you got an extra 3 million, I don't know whether it's still up for sale or whether it was sold. But
wow.
yeah,
Three
so they
million to
they
buy
share the
and 30
same
million to
story.
repair.
And as I say, like I don't believe a word of that. That's just
Right.
folklore and stories. But it
Well,
kind of
and the interesting thing
joins
is,
together with the
of course,
the
and
whole Hellfire Club.
the Hellfire Club, right? The idea of the demon and the demonic, and I mean, even my father's book, The Ballarbane, has a somewhat cloven hoof creature that is comes from folklore in Devon, and yeah, so it certainly makes its way around the British Isles and Ireland and different places. Um, and I wonder too if it's, you know, in reference to, being satanic, or if it's one of those things that, who first referred it, right? Because I'm always sort of skeptical of these stories, because it's almost always pushed forward by the Christian church. Right? I hate to say it, but it's
Yeah.
so true. They are so
And again,
quick to,
yeah, but the stories are also so old that,
yes,
in addition to what you just said, you've got the time period where more quote information just keeps getting added to it
yes.
until you've
It's
just got
broken
this completely
telephone.
ridiculous tale that there's no possible way that this ever occurred.
No, it's broken telephone in history, right? So you
You know,
go with
it's like
the
the guy that went out fishing and he caught a fish this big. Well, by the time the story gets told, yeah, he's got this 17-foot
he's
long shark on the end of his fishing rod
yeah,
that that
at a
ate his
creek.
boat. And
He caught it in the stream behind the house.
yeah,
But yeah, and that's just it, right? It's kind of like, as I call it, historical broken telephone. It doesn't mean that it's historical in accurate sense of, historical happenings, but it's just throughout history, the story has changed and shaped and molded and become something much more than it really is. Oh, I'm just looking at a picture of Loftus Hall right now. Wow, it's huge.
you know it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So I'm just going to read this little blurb about it. It says Loftus Hall is in the county Wexford. It's home to not one, but two spectres, calling itself the most haunted house in Ireland. So, Ian, it has two spectres, and that's the most haunted house.
Well, I don't know about that.
I know. I'm thinking, I know locations that have far more than two.
Much more than that. Yeah.
Maybe they're two legitimately referenced specters, that have been perhaps caught on camera or, caught in a sound clip. But it said this abandoned building is said to have been haunted by both the devil himself, as you said, and a young woman who once lived in the house, rumored to have been briefly owned by Bono from U2. And
Oh,
so
really?
it is in brackets, if that's not horrific enough.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently Bono owned the house. It's accompanied by a legend that a mysterious visitor welcomed into the house one night after a storm was later revealed to be the devil by the presence of its cloven foot. It was either that or Krampus. After his disappearance through the roof, the young lady of the house was driven mad and died years later in a room to which she was confined. So there's the combination of that story right there. And who knew that Bono owned it? So why did Bono sell Loftus Hall?
He was scared out in the middle of the night, probably.
Bono, is it haunted?
Who knows?
Can we ask Bono if it's haunted? Yeah, I might have to send him a message on Facebook and go,
why did you sell your house?
Was Loftus Hall haunted? Yeah, when did Bono own it? I am not sure. It does not say. But we'll have to look into it. It says rumored to have once briefly been owned by him. So that may have been back in the 80s. Who knows, right? But apparently he sold it fairly quickly from the sounds of it. So